Right.
speaking of higher prices, Flint, I know you had an article about fuel. What do you got? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah. So I thought it was interesting. I saw this article in Landline about Suncor. So Suncor owns one refinery in Denver, and they shut it down because they said, well, we got a deep freeze in Denver. I think we all remember this big winter event, like roughly Christmas, that made all the flights get screwed up and whatnot. They said, well, our refinery got too cold, damaged some equipment, so we better shut it down. Um, One, I wonder, like, if we have a refinery in Denver, how do we not? It'd be different if it was like Houston and it got down to like -20, right? But we're in Denver. How do we not expect we're going to have some cold freaking weather in Denver? So why do we not design a refinery appropriately? Look, the other thing I think is really interesting in the refinery business is like very similar to like meat packers, right? There's like a few industries that kind of have this what's called a natural monopoly, and so Suncor. It's funny. Suncor owns a refinery. They also own the pipelines. Most of the pipelines in Colorado. They also market and transport most of the petroleum products in Colorado. So I always wonder when I see this news, like, all right, Suncor's got the only refinery in Colorado. There's 7 times the refining capacity in Oklahoma, 2 times the refining capacity in Wyoming. Sometimes these things kind of like, hey, it would be convenient if we shut that refinery down because of this deep freeze. Pipeline traffic's been a little slow. Like, actually, based on the market conditions, we can probably make more money trading and transporting these products than we can actually making these products, right? I always kind of wonder that.
Interesting. Yeah, that's right. Because right here on the article it says Suncor's website says the Commerce City refinery processes approximately 98,000 barrels per day, and so yeah. And I know, Flint, you talked to Greg Duhane from TA, and he said there was generally no shortage, right? Because obviously fuel shortage, it was like probably peak fear a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
25 days of supply left. OMG, right? It's like that whole thing. And so it's and I know Greg explained that sometimes the refinery occasionally does have to shut down. But your question here, initially, the motives, right? It's like maybe they shut down because it makes more sense for them to make money somewhere else, right? That's kind of the question.
Well, it may be. I mean, I'm just guessing, right? Like, this is kind of how natural monopolies tend to work. I mean, I don't have any proof of that, but I think back to Greg's point, right? Like, generally, I think demand has softened for refined petroleum products over the last few weeks as general economic conditions start to deteriorate a little bit from where we were a few months ago. I mean, it's not a new thing for refineries to shut down, right? I mean, refineries shut down all the time for scheduled maintenance, rebuild equipment, whatever it is. I just think it's interesting that all these things kind of demand's down. Suncor kind of has a natural monopoly in Colorado. Refinery goes offline. It just seems kind of interesting to me, right? And obviously this is going to result in higher prices. Like, that refinery mostly supplies Metro Denver, and so now you got to ship in refined products from Oklahoma, Wyoming, possibly Texas, other states. So obviously, if you're in Colorado, you're going to see higher prices. So, if you're driving through Colorado as a truck driver, perhaps go ahead and get on through Colorado before you fill that tank up, right?
Right. Fill up in Wyoming and then drive through, and then
Fill up
right.
in Oklahoma, right?
Right. So, and they did mention right here in the article, the latest weekly fuel reports released on January 2nd show a decline in average diesel prices within the Rocky Mountain region, which includes Colorado. So it looks like the fuel hasn't maybe it'll take some time to start to really affect the prices. But it is interesting. Why declare a state of emergency? It's like, my goodness, like, what did the guy do? Suncor CEO call the governor and be like, "Hey, bud, like, let's just declare a state of emergency." Matt, what's your opinion on this?
Yeah.
Well, there's so many opinions I have. Let's start with the last piece there. Doesn't it seem like since COVID, like, we're getting the declaration of emergency like over anything anymore, right? Just bam. Something bad is going to happen or might happen or just happened. Bam, state of emergency, all new powers to the government. Oh, there's so many things to talk about on that.
I stubbed my toe. Declaration, state of emergency declared. Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah, we need
access to that federal government money, guys. That federal government money. You got to get that. You got to keep it flowing in. It's like a competition among the states, right? Like who can claim the most federal government emergency money this month.
there's no limit on these emergencies, and I'm like, how is this not, kind of factored in when we're building these constitutions, these state and federal constitutions? We could just do these endless emergencies. California is still in a state of emergency over COVID 3 years later. So, I mean, it's endless. They just rubber stamp the renewal. I'm sorry, we could go into this rabbit hole for a while, but I mean, there's no end to it. I'm like, how did we not factor that in? Maybe there just should be an automatic end, unless the enemy is literally at the gate. No more state of emergency. But some of the other things, I think. Now we'll just stay at the politics. I think the green energy crew is putting so much pressure on anybody, any oil refiner, anyone in the fossil fuel space, and this is coming from government agencies and special groups, special interest groups. I just think like it's not just a profit motive when it comes to why things are breaking down, or like I don't think they're doing it intentionally. I actually kind of feel sorry for anybody in the fossil fuel space right now, because I think in Colorado, California, a lot of other states with certain political leanings, it seems like that kind of thing is happening more often than not. I know California is getting a lot of their electricity from Wyoming and other places adjacent to it, because they keep shutting down fossil fuel plants.
Don't get me started, Matt. Right? We need all these electrical vehicles, right? We need all the vehicles to run on electric. We also don't want to burn any coal in the state to make power. So let's burn all the coal in Wyoming, and then let's experience the transmission losses from Wyoming to actually get the power to California to charge the cars, right? I mean, power loss along the transmission line or energy loss is quite significant over long distances. But as long as the coal's not burned in the state of California, everything's cool.
Right.
That
we'll feel good about ourselves.
The current state.
Right.
Yeah. We don't actually have the plant here, but secretly we're trucking that in from other states. And I just want to make sure I mention
California has significantly reduced our air pollution. Yeah, all you did was move the pollution to another state, guys. I don't know how this whole CO2 global warming thing works, but I don't think it matters if it comes from California or Wyoming.
But of course, nuclear energy is not an option, right? So
No.
I just want to make sure I mention that, because anybody listening to this podcast, I think most of our listeners would probably be pounding on the table, like or the dashboard as they're listening, thinking like, you got to mention this whole like climate change stuff that's going on, and the political pressure being put on the refineries and power production plants, those types of facilities. So just thought I'd throw that out there.
The concern, though, is that essentially refineries are losing in the court of public opinion somewhat, right? They're not favorable in that aspect. And so it's like, if it almost seems like a win-win for the refinery. It's like, hey, we get to shut down, we get to enjoy higher profits because all the people in Colorado are still going to buy it. And on top of that, we get to declare a state of emergency. So that's maybe potentially some kind of federal money coming in. And on top of that, hey, we look good like we're some kind of a green energy company because we shut down one bad refinery. Okay, that's fair.